Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Raleigh, the state capital. We are joined by David Lewis. He is a member of the North Carolina House of Representatives, has been very active in tax reform in this great state. And I want to speak with you about tax reform and specifically zero in at first on sales tax. For the last two cycles, you've been involved in changing the way the state taxes certain goods and products and services. Right. Let's start with 2013 and then go to 2015.
Sure. I think it's important to understand that we started out with the principle that our economy is changing. It is largely a service-based economy now. It's one in which people consume things. And we wanted to figure out a way that we could tax the consumption, tax what somebody actually uses, and tax less what people save or what people invest or what people give to charity.
Sure.
So we took a look at how our sales tax was, and what we found out is that over the years, the sales tax had been changed. There was a lot of special tax treatments, or what some would call carve-outs to the sales tax base, and we went about trying to fix those. And you know, it was very easy, frankly, to be demagogued and people talk about how bad things were. But what we did is go and look and find a lot of hidden taxes, franchise taxes, and things that were buried or or embedded in goods. Repealed those, and it then imposed the actual sales tax on them, so people know what they're paying sales tax on. Again, we wanted to make sure that we were doing all we could to not tax charitable giving. We think that's important. We didn't want to tax savings. We didn't want to tax investments. We want to truly get to a system where we tax what someone is using, tax what someone is consuming.
And you said it, in the 21st century, tangible goods aren't the only things we're consuming.
That's right.
We're consuming other items in different ways, items we don't necessarily touch or feel. And so in a lot of ways, North Carolina is forward thinking because there are so many states that are looking at this question and are just having tremendous difficulty trying to get a grasp on how to appropriately tax in the 21st century. And what's really remarkable about what North Carolina did is not only did you spread out the sales tax, but at the same time you lowered the personal income tax rate. Because, you know, it's one thing to spread out the sales tax, but if you don't decrease it, then it's just more things are being taxed. But you did a kind of a 1-2 punch.
That's right. I'm very proud of that. Yes, we lowered the rate. North Carolina had the highest personal income tax in the Southeast at 7.75%. We've now taken it down to 5.75%. But the most important thing we did is we expanded the zero bracket or the standard deduction. A family that's say they're filing their taxes, married filing jointly now, you can now earn up to $16,500 in North Carolina and pay no tax. And I'm excited about that. That helps the folks at the lower end of the spectrum be able to have more of their money available for them to spend.
I have to ask you, since you were so involved in this process, we joked about carve-outs, and so now you're starting to look at taxing services. Everyone wants their own carve-out. How did you kind of balance the desire to spread out the sales tax and do it in a fair and equitable way, in a way that captured what you were looking to capture, were those services, those intangible services?
Well, we simply had the guiding principles that we needed to modernize our tax system to more adequately reflect what life is like here in the 21st century. We also took a pragmatic approach. We've not gone as far as we need to, frankly, because we didn't want to create a whole bunch of new tax collectors. We have not expanded services into services that are not related to a tangible personal good.
So medical, as an example, or that's not taxed?
That's right.
Accounting, legal?
Those would not be taxed, at least not yet.
You're right.
Because they're not currently collecting and remitting sales tax. If, for instance, I'm a tractor dealer in the real world, and we were already equipped and set up to collect and tax the sales tax on the parts, but not charging the tax on the labor. So while it's a little more cost to our customers, perhaps, it's no additional burden for our company to collect and remit the sales tax.
You know, between us, no one listening, was it just a steep hill to climb to really reform this sales tax system? Or in the end, were you able to get the buy-in that you would hope the legislature could find? Or a little of both?
It was actually a pretty interesting journey.
Right.
When you start out by saying we're going to fundamentally change the tax system, and then you find a pragmatic way
right.
to get a large percentage of what you wanted done, then most folks are willing to consider that a win.
Of course.
And I can remember some of the early hearings that we would have. I can remember one of our members standing up with the North Carolina Tax Code, which is a very thick book, and he says, you see all the folks seated in the back of the room, they put something in here.
They clearly did.
We want to thin this thing down. And that along with trying to figure out how can we best help the working families of our state. It's very important to understand we cut the sales tax rate by a full percentage point.
So not only did you spread it out, but you dropped it as well.
That's right. And folks want to talk about, we're very concerned. I'm aware that there's a perception that a sales tax is a regressive tax. Right. But I would point out that by lowering the rate, we have helped families that need to buy clothes or diapers or school supplies. They're now paying less tax on every transaction than they were 4 years ago.
I want to talk about corporations, if we may.
Sure.
Corporations in North Carolina, are now seeing their tax rate drop.
Right.
It was as high as almost 7%, going down to 3% in 2017. Now, that can feel good, of course.
Sure.
But I'm wondering, at what point are you creating a scenario whereby, because the corporate tax rate is so low, that there's no way to incentivize behavior? Because yes, it's a favorable tax environment, but how then do you provide other sweeteners? For example, South Carolina handled their sweeteners quite well with the Volvo plant.
Right. That's one of the things that is a little bit frustrating in trying to balance tax policy and with the overriding goal of creating economic growth. And I don't think anyone disagrees that if you tax corporate earnings and then the corporation passes the money down to the shareholders that own it. Right. And a lot of people picture shareholders as the guy on the monopoly board. The truth is there's a lot of shareholders that have invested in companies in their 401k plan, or maybe they're a state employee who participates in the teacher and state employees retirement plan. Those are the those are the real shareholders. Those are the institutional guys that fall. And if you tax what the corporation makes and then tax the earnings that it distributes, you really are creating a disincentive. So what I've always tried to tell folks is that whatever our tax rate is for corporations in the state, picture that as a diving board over a swimming pool. And the higher the board is, the further it is from the pool, the more of a challenge, the more of an optical step it takes to get a company to engage in the pool of committing to do and remain in business in North Carolina. I think we've done a very good job of lowering that board so that North Carolina looks more friendly, it's more inviting for companies to jump in. We've got to figure out some way to pare back and to do only the smartest incentives that we can, and only the incentives that have to be done to provide a positive return to the citizens of the state. But I get told all the time, the easiest thing for me to do is to say I'm against all of them. We just shouldn't do any of them. We just need to get the income tax to zero, and I point out that in Texas the income tax is zero, and they have perhaps the most aggressive business incentive recruiting plan of all.
You'll come back?
Absolutely.
He is David Lewis. He is a member of the North Carolina House of Representatives. My name is Brad Pomerance, and Raleigh, it's Turner Local Edition.